Hello, this is Yva with yvaloveearts, and today I'll be making a Father's Day card, and I'm just showing you the pieces here that I'll be using, and I'll have the measurements for those down in the description as well as over at my blog, where I will include a downloadable PDF with the template for this card. So I'm just going to start out by painting the card back with the Mediterranean Blue Twinkling H2O's. And the reason I'm doing this is so that whether you're looking at the back of the card or the front of the card, it'll look like you're looking at the shirt. You don't have to do this painting on the back side if you don't want to, but this is just what I did, and I think it turned out pretty cute. So this part is me taping down the card front, which is going to be glued down to the card base later on. So I have made this bigger than the card base so that I can just completely paint it and then cut it down later. So again, I'm using the Mediterranean Blue and the Twinkling H2O's and just giving that a good coverage before I will dry it with my heat gun. Using the Twinkling H2O's on this card just really adds a beautiful shimmer to the whole card, and I think makes it stand out more so than you could with just pattern paper or other paints. So I'm just going to remove that and set it aside to dry completely. And next I'll be working on the tie portion. And I just drew out the shape of a tie here, but if you're not comfortable with your drawing, then again I will include this downloadable PDF with the tie already drawn for you over at my blog at www.yvaloveearts.wordpress.com. So I'm just taking the different colors that I've pulled aside here, which are also listed down in the description and over at my blog. So I'm just going to create some stripes, and I'm not going for perfect here. It's fine that they're painterly and not completely straight, or I would have used some masking tape to try to get completely straight lines with masked off, but I was okay with just the loose lines that I'm getting here. And again, I was a little impatient, so I got a little bit of bleeding there. So you'll want to make sure that if you get these lines touching, that they're completely dry before you paint an opposing color next to it. Now I don't have all of the colors that I want yet in the Twinkling H2O's, so I went ahead and pulled out my Silks Acrylic Glazes, and I will be using a couple of colors that I have in those. This one is the Olive Vine, and next I will use the Teal Zircon. Tell that I'm not staying in the lines, and that's perfectly okay because I will be cutting this out later, and I can still see that line, so I'll be able to follow it with my scissors later. And sorry I was painting off camera, but you missed this little part where I started painting in the small rectangle, which will become the knot of the tie later. And here I thought I would go ahead and show you how I created the collar, just using my ruler. This scrap of paper is 1.5 inches tall and 6 inches wide, so I'm just marking off the center at 3 inches, both on the top and the bottom, so I can make some marks equidistant to the center. So I'll show you what those measurements are in a bit, but right now I'm just making those marks on the left and right hand side. So next I will draw a line from the top mark on the right side to the bottom mark on the right side, and then I'll do the same thing on the left side, drawing a line from the top to the bottom mark. And this is just going to be a guide so that I can take it over to my paper trimmer, or you can use a scoring board and score those lines for the folds of the collar. Now the scoring blade on my paper trimmer didn't quite do it for me, so I went ahead and grabbed a stylus and went over that score line again and just made it a little deeper. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And you just want to make sure that those 2 points on the top sides meet at the bottom where that 3-inch mark was. So I'll go ahead and write in the measurements that I used. And I'll be honest, you don't have to use these measurements. You can come up with your own, especially if you're using a different sized card. This was just the measurements that happened to come out for the first card that I made when I was coming up with the design for this card. I did see this card somewhere on the internet before. I'll search for it, and if I find it, I'll put the link to the picture that I had seen down below in the description. But there were, I just kind of had to come up with my own template for how to create it. So these numbers are not easy to figure out or find on the ruler if you're not like a math major. No, it's 1 7/8 inches and 4 1/8 inches on the top, and what was it, 1 13/16 and 4 and what was it? Oh no, 1 3/16 and 1 13/16 on the bottom. So yeah, just count those itty bitty little marks. After that, you'll erase your pencil lines, and now you'll just paint both sides of the collar in the Mediterranean blue so it will match the shirt. Now if you want to create a collar of a different color, then of course feel free to do so. I've seen those shirts that have just like the white collar, so you don't even have to paint it at all. You just keep it white. But mine's all one color, so. And then once you're done painting that, then you can set that aside to dry. And we'll bring back the card front, which is now dry, and pull off the masking tape. And then we'll grab the paper trimmer and cut that down to size. Now the card I'm making is going to be 5.5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. So, considering that the collar will take up 1.5 inches of that height, I will be cutting this card base down, or card front down, to 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. So next I will cut out the tie, which is now dry. Just grabbing my scissors. It's a pretty simple shape, and I think that turned out pretty cute. And then I will grab that small rectangle, fold the ends over the top of the tie, and glue them down with some tacky glue. Now later I'm going to change the tie a little bit because I didn't realize this, but when you look at striped ties, the stripes on the tie go in the opposite direction. So I'll realize that later and it'll bother me, and I'll pull it off so that I can correct it. But right now I'm just taping the tie down with some foam tape. And then I'll grab my 1/16 inch hole punch and create some little holes in the corners of the collar. Grab a pencil and place the collar on the card, making sure that it's centered, and then punch out those holes where the marks were, so that I can grab some mini brads and attach the collar to the shirt. And just to make sure it's secure, I also add some tacky glue from the collar to the tie top. And then I will grab some double-sided adhesive and attach the card front to the card base. And I've also added a little swirly metal clip as a tie clip. And here is where I decide to change that knot. I really just thought that putting those lines in the opposite direction would also add some interest and help the knot of the tie stand out more. So I'll just go back through those same colors I used on the tie before and create another little rectangled piece and attach it the same way I did before, so that it will look better. And here it is. Went ahead and cut out the part where I'm struggling to get it attached again and glued down, and just taking a look at what I've done so far. I think it looks cute. I think it could just use a little bit of a border, so I'm going to go ahead and grab some of the Twinkling H2O's in Mediterranean Blue again and just darken up all the edges. Now I'm going to be using this card for Father's Day, but it's just a masculine card that could really work for many occasions. So I hope you'll give it a try, and thanks again for tuning in. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them below in the comments, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the ColourArte channel and my channel over at yvaloveearts. And don't forget to give some love to the fathers in your life. Thanks again. Bye-bye.